Base. This is Ranger Green. I don't know what's going on. I'm gonna need somebody down here. Over.
Welcome to Lilith Dread. Tonight's story is different from our usual fare. What I'm about to share with you has been independently verified by multiple sources, though many of them will only speak off the record, hesitant to share all the details as they recall what they've seen, or what they've been told to forget. Deep beneath the Guadalupe Mountains of New Mexico lies Carlsbad Caverns National Park, a labyrinth of over 120 known caves stretching across 73 square miles of desert landscape. The key word here is known, because in 2019, 2 separate park rangers would discover something that challenges everything we understand about these ancient caverns, and about who or what might have visited them long ago. This isn't a story about bats or stalactites or the natural wonders that draw hundreds of thousands of tourists to Carlsbad each year. This is a story about what happens when dedicated public servants stumble upon something they weren't meant to find, something that would trigger an immediate response from Washington, lead to unexplained equipment failures, missing records, and the sudden transfer of experienced personnel. The National Park Service has a long history of transparent operation. Every discovery, every new cave passage, every prehistoric artifact is typically documented, studied, and eventually shared with the public. But not this time. This time was different. This time they moved with an urgency that spoke of something far more significant than mere geological curiosity. What you're about to hear comes directly from the 2 rangers who made these discoveries, speaking publicly for the first time. Their testimonies, independently given months apart, tell a story so similar and so strange that it defies coincidence. A story that the Department of the Interior has gone to extraordinary lengths to keep quiet.
You know, it's still hard to talk about this. Even now. The morning I found that passage started out so normal. Just another day underground, you know? I'd been a ranger at Carlsbad for almost 7 years at that point, and, well, when you spend that much time in the caves, you get to know them. Really know them. I was doing a routine check of the lighting system in the Queen's Chamber. Nothing special. But then I noticed something about the airflow that just wasn't right. You have to understand, in cave systems, airflow is everything. After years underground, you develop this sense for it. This was different. It was just this subtle current coming from what should have been solid limestone wall. Honestly, I probably wouldn't have even noticed if I hadn't been adjusting that light fixture right in that spot. I remember checking it with our thermal imaging equipment. We carry it for monitoring bat populations, you see. And there it was on the screen. A temperature differential that had no business being there. The wall was reading several degrees cooler than the surrounding rock. Just sitting there, defying everything I knew about cave geology. I radioed my location to dispatch, standard procedure, and started a closer inspection. That's when I found it. Behind what looked like a solid flowstone formation, there was this gap. Not big, barely wide enough for a person to squeeze through, but the air coming from it was noticeably cooler than the main chamber. I'll never forget standing there trying to decide what to do. Protocol said wait for backup, but, well, I'd been exploring caves since college. I had all my gear, emergency supplies, fully charged radio, everything by the book. So I squeezed through. What I found on the other side, the chamber was massive, easily as large as the natural entrance room. But that's not what made me stop dead in my tracks. The walls, they were covered in what looked like prehistoric paintings, but God, in all my years studying Southwest archaeology, I'd never seen anything like them. The figures were just wrong somehow. The proportions, they were all wrong. And the designs, they seemed to shift and change in my headlamp beam. I know how that sounds, but I know what I saw. But the floor, that was the truly strange part. It was perfectly level. Not natural level, but engineered level. There were these geometric patterns etched into the stone. They weren't natural formations, they couldn't be. They looked more like circuit boards than cave features. I did everything by the book. Took photos, took video, documented everything according to protocol. Radioed my location and findings to dispatch. Within an hour, my supervisor showed up with 2 geologists from the Park Service. I led them to the passage, showed them what I'd found. That's when things got weird. They thanked me for my discovery, but told me to return to my regular duties. Just like that. The next day, the whole area was cordoned off for geological assessment. When I tried to follow up, they told me the passage had been deemed unstable and sealed for safety reasons. My photos and video somehow corrupted on my phone. All I have left are my memories and my field notes. And sometimes I wonder if I really want those.
What Susan Green encountered in those depths would be easy to dismiss as the imagination of an isolated ranger, alone, too long in the darkness. But there's something about caves that strips away our pretenses, that forces us to confront reality in its most raw form. Underground, where the darkness is absolute and time seems to stand still, the line between the possible and impossible begins to blur. In the months following Green's discovery, strange occurrences began to multiply throughout the cave system. Maintenance workers reported equipment failures near the sealed passage, batteries draining inexplicably, radios picking up impossible frequencies. Several guides noted that their compasses would spin erratically in certain sections of the main cavern, sections that hadn't displayed any magnetic anomalies in over 80 years of scientific study. Perhaps most disturbing were the sounds. Multiple employees reported hearing what they described as mechanical humming, emanating from behind the limestone walls, always in the dead of night, always when they were alone. The official explanation? Natural resonance from wind moving through the cave system. But those who heard it say it was like nothing natural they'd ever encountered. The Park Service's response was swift and unprecedented. They installed new security cameras throughout the cave system, restricted after-hours access even to senior staff, and brought in a team of geologists who worked behind portable privacy screens. The geologists' equipment arrived in unmarked crates, and they spoke to no one outside their team. But if Susan Green's discovery was unsettling, what happened 8 months later would shake the very foundation of our understanding of Carlsbad Caverns. In a different section of the cave system, nearly half a mile from Green's sealed passage, another ranger would stumble upon something that couldn't be so easily hidden behind warning signs and security tape. Meet Tom Blackwood, a veteran cave specialist with over 2 decades of experience in the National Park Service. A man who, until October 2019, prided himself on his scientific skepticism and rational approach to the mysteries of the underground world.
I've thought long and hard about coming forward with this. Look, I've got 15 years until retirement, and the Park Service, well, they've been good to me. But after what happened with Ranger Green, and now this, people need to know. I was down in the lower cave area that day, mapping a newly discovered side passage. Nothing unusual about that. We're always finding new offshoots down there. I had my survey equipment set up, just taking routine measurements, when my laser level showed something odd. The beam wasn't reflecting right off one of the walls. Now, when you've been working caves as long as I have, over 2 decades, You learn to trust your instruments. Even the smallest thing, just a fraction of a degree off, it usually means something. I set up a different angle, just to be sure, you know? And there it was again. That wall wasn't behaving like solid rock should. Using my survey tools, I found this narrow fissure. You couldn't see it with the naked eye, not really. It took some doing, but I managed to get enough leverage to widen it and, well, what I found, I'm still trying to make sense of it. The opening revealed a tunnel, but this wasn't natural, wasn't carved by water over millions of years. No, the walls were too smooth, the angle too precise. It was like someone had cut it with a laser or something. I followed protocol, called it in right away, but before the response team arrived, God, I still see it when I close my eyes. About 50 feet down that tunnel, there was this symbol carved into the wall, and it was glowing, not reflecting my headlamp, actually glowing. This soft, bluish light, like nothing I've ever seen before. Listen, I'm a scientist, been one my whole career. I don't believe in the supernatural or ancient aliens or any of that History Channel stuff, but I know what I saw, and I know how they responded. Within hours, and I mean hours, this special team arrived from Washington. They weren't regular Park Service personnel, I can tell you that much. Their credentials were different, and they moved like military, special ops or something. They debriefed me for 6 hours. Same questions, over and over, particularly about that symbol and whether I'd felt any unusual sensations while in the tunnel. Then they had me sign this stack of non-disclosure agreements. Said it was a matter of national security. National security in a cave. The next day, that entire section of the lower cave was closed for emergency maintenance. It's still closed today. When I tried to access my survey data later, everything from that day was gone, completely wiped from the system. I've been in cave management for most of my adult life. I know every procedure, every protocol. What happened that day, that wasn't normal. And whatever they found down there, well, maybe there's a reason some passages stay hidden.
2 experienced rangers, 2 similar discoveries, 2 rapid cover-ups. What lies beneath Carlsbad Caverns that the National Park Service doesn't want us to see? The official response to inquiries about these incidents has been predictably dismissive. The Park Service cites routine geological assessment and standard safety protocols. But our investigation has uncovered some disturbing inconsistencies in the official narrative. In the months following these discoveries, Carlsbad Caverns received an unprecedented number of visits from geological survey teams. Yet no survey results were ever published. Power consumption at the park increased by 300% during this period, according to local utility records, with no explanation given for the surge. Even more puzzling, satellite imagery shows multiple unmarked military-style vehicles entering the park in the pre-dawn hours throughout the summer of 2019. A former maintenance worker, speaking on condition of anonymity, reported that specialized equipment was installed in the park's electrical system, equipment that required significant modifications to the cave's power grid. When asked about the purpose of these modifications, park officials claimed they were upgrading the lighting system, yet public records show no contracts or budgets allocated for such improvements. Local residents reported strange vibrations in the ground during the night, strong enough to rattle windows in nearby towns. The USGS earthquake monitoring station just outside the park was mysteriously decommissioned that same year, citing budget constraints, despite receiving increased funding just months earlier. Perhaps most telling is the sudden transfer of both rangers to different parks within months of their discoveries. Susan Green now works at a small historical site in Michigan. Tom Blackwood was moved to an administrative position in Denver, far from any caves, but they weren't the only ones. In total, 17 park employees were transferred or took early retirement in the 18 months following the discoveries. When pressed for comment, the Department of the Interior cited routine personnel rotations. Our investigation also uncovered something else, something that may connect these events to a larger pattern. In the past decade, similar incidents have occurred at other cave-bearing parks across the country. Mammoth Cave in Kentucky, Wind Cave in South Dakota, Jewel Cave in Wyoming. Each time the same sequence: unexpected discoveries, rapid response teams, increased power consumption, and personnel transfers. The questions multiply. What lies hidden in those deep passages beneath the Guadalupe Mountains? Why would the discovery of new cave chambers, normally a cause for scientific celebration, trigger such a secretive response? What connection might these findings have to the local indigenous legends about the people who live below? And perhaps most importantly, why is the National Park Service, an agency created to preserve and protect America's natural wonders, working so hard to keep something hidden? A former high-ranking Park Service official speaking off the record offered this cryptic warning. Some things in those caves were never meant to be found. There are places underground that don't belong to us, that have never belonged to us. And the people who know this, they'll do whatever it takes to keep that truth buried. Some mysteries resist explanation, but others are actively buried. As the lights in Carlsbad Caverns flicker on each morning for the daily tours, tourists shuffle past the sealed passages, unaware of what might lie just beyond those limestone walls. The caves keep their secrets, and those who find them are quietly ushered away, left to wonder about what they've seen and what forces are at work to keep it hidden. But perhaps the most chilling detail emerged just last week. 3 separate sources confirmed that new equipment is being quietly moved into Carlsbad Caverns. The official explanation: routine maintenance. But one photo, taken by a tourist and quickly deleted from social media, showed crates bearing an unexpected label: property of DARPA Advanced Research Division. The truth, like those deep passages, remains tantalizingly out of reach, waiting in the darkness for someone brave enough or foolish enough to go looking for it. And maybe that's for the best, because sometimes what lies hidden in the dark should stay hidden.